Okay. Let me just write a list of slides on the board. So I can just kind of, you can track what I'm doing here. Thyroid, parathyroid. Okay, this is a slide. Two glands are on one slide, thyroid, parathyroid. That's a slide. Pituitary or hypophysis, that's a slide. Pancreas, adrenal gland. Ovary. Turns out ovary is going to be from the cat. That's a better one to study for students. We have testes. Sometimes they're from the rat, sometimes they're not. Anyways, here are the slides. Now, one thing I want to encourage you to do is to know where well, I'll just tell you, where are the slides located if you want to go to Open Lab and study these slides, the same ones I'm going to look at now. It helps to study them on your own with the microscope in front of you. So I'm going to write the slide locations down. What you want to do, if you come to Open Lab, if you're in this room, you can kind of just access these boxes directly. It's box A, B, and C, and each box, if you haven't used these before, has all these trays in it. You pull out one tray, there's 12 trays, but there's a left and a right side. And so let me write the locations of this. Take a 1 minute stretch break. I gotta write this down.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. It's like writing.
It's a 1. So as I present, I'll just kind of go through the study guide. I'll start with the thyroid. This is all. So whenever you work with slides, we have lens paper and these little cleaners, bottles of cleaner here. It helps to kind of like just wipe down all the dust off. So if you didn't take micro, you didn't do much histo in 430, you should put the slide on the stage so it stays still. And let me switch applications here. there, so that black screen, I'll turn my scope on. I'm going to turn the lights off so you can see the histology just a little better. When I turn this scope on, you should see it light up a little bit. Let me get a chair so I don't hit my back. Turn the scope on and you see nothing. It's up to you to get it in focus. Little scope review. Always start at the lowest magnification, 40x. That's our low mag. And I just kind of like manipulate it until I see something in the low mag. Here we go. Do you see something there? So that's low mag. Okay. So what I see under a low mag, I see both things in terms of the glands. Thyroid, parathyroid. See the purple splotch over there on your study guide? That's parathyroid gland. Look at your study guide. What are the cells you're supposed to be able to identify? C cells, or chief cells, right? Not C cells. Yeah, chief cells. So the cells stained purple, they're the chief cells. I might have you identify the cell type. Parathyroid gland. Can you see all the follicles for the thyroid here? These ones are huge, these follicles. See, these ones are much smaller. Okay, let me take a picture of this low mag. See this right here? Get used to identifying blood vessels because you see them on every slide we look at because blood goes everywhere. Okay. Blood vessel, parathyroid, follicles of the thyroid follicle. To see the individual follicle cells that surround the colloid, you got to go high mag. I'm going to go there. This is 100x medium magnification. Let's go 400x. Don't go any higher than 400 for anything that we do. Focus. Blue, white balance that. A little bit. Let me scan around. Pretty good, take a picture of that. So what I see is, for example, this one. This whole thing, from here to here, is a follicle. That's colloid. It's inactive thyroid hormone or thyroglobulin. Each of these are individual follicle cells that surround it. If you see a clump of cells outside of a follicle, those are called parafollicular cells or C cells. They secrete a hormone I'll teach later called calcitonin. Okay? So any questions on this image? That's all you got to know for this slide. I'm going to move on. Pituitary. Go back to low. Bring your stage all the way down. Remove the slide, put the next one in. I say all that because I expect you to view slides in the same way. And know that slides are put away incorrectly all the time by students. So be sure when you grab a slide from the correct location that it's not the wrong slide. Hypothesis. Just use low mag for this. I'm going to give you a lab time on Thursday. I'm going to go from that. Maybe I can go lower. This is a 20x. Lower. stain's light and I point over here, put posterior lobe. What about if the stain's the darkest? Anterior pituitary or anterior lobe. This one in the middle, stains intermediate, pars intermedia. The infundibulum is this small, narrow part up here. So infundibulum, which is continuous with posterior pituitary, anterior pituitary, pars intermedia. There's a big gap. Don't mind it, but basically, you're not going to be able to identify that. Any questions on pituitary? Pretty straightforward, that one. Okay. Moving on. Hypothesis done. About pancreas next? Okay. Now, I didn't teach pancreas, but it's pretty simple to deal with. You're just looking for those little clumps of cells that secrete insulin and glucagon. Let's see what we got here. They're looking for something called pancreatic islets or islets of Langerhans. Those are the little clumps of cells that secrete insulin and glucagon. And whenever you look under low mag, what I always do, I look for things that pop out. Like that pops out. All these little things pop out, but they're not all the correct thing. You're looking for a clump of cells. I think this is it. See that? Maybe you can't. Let's go to higher mag. Now, if you see little dark nuclei, those are a clump of cells. If you see something with a big lumen, that's red blood cells in a blood vessel. That's probably pancreatic duct. This is what we're looking for. Let's go to high mag. That's a pancreatic islet. Those little tiny island of cells responsible for insulin and glucagon. Take a picture of that. And moving on. Be able to identify pancreatic islets. Next is adrenal gland. This is a low mag. This is actually probably pretty good. To master this slide, train your eye to see the border between cortex and medulla. I'm going to give you a second to try to find that. Well, I guess first of all, you have to remember, what is cortex and medulla? Cortex, outer part, medulla, inner part. This is the inner part. Here's the border between the two. Is that what you're thinking you see? Maybe? All this cortex, all this medulla. So if I have to identify that, adrenal medulla, that's the capsule. Therefore, our salt sugar sex is in effect. Zona glomerulosa fasciculata reticularis. I can even see like little blood vessels, blood in between the cells there. Okay, so the corticosteroids can get into the bloodstream. Once again, salt, sugar, sex. I'll take a picture of that. Be able to identify the zones. Zona glomerulosa fasciculata reticularis. I will not accept salt, sugar, sex. That's just a memory job. In case you're wondering. Okay. Oh, cat. We'll just look at the different follicle structures we just talked about. Low mag should be pretty good. Ovary. Okay, there's a low mag. Let's look at it. We're going to go to medium magnification, 100x. Trying to find one with all of them in one shot, but I'm not really finding it. Let me scan around here. That one's pretty good. All right, top edge, all of these. Primordial, very good. What do you think that one is? Primary, very good. What about boom, 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 boom? What do you think all those are? Secondary. And the big one? Yeah, the big one is graphic. The biggest one from here to here is graphic. And even under a low magnification, we can make out the layers, granulosa cells, theca. Okay, let me go to a higher mag for that actually. So here's the outer edge of a follicle of a Graphian. That's the theca, the connective tissue looking cells. That's the granulosa cells. So theca, granulosa cells for a follicle, for a mature follicle. And I'm done with ovary unless there's any questions. We'll move on to testes. Missing the testes slide. Here's a low mag, and you can see all the cut seminiferous tubules. I won't take a picture of this, but just to orient you with the low magnification, what we see, these long convoluted tubules that have been cut are the seminiferous tubules. All of these, with the dark cells inside, are blood vessels, and the interstitial cells are in between. And that's what we're looking for. They secrete the estrogen. The homologous structure in female is the theca. So the interstitial cells is what we call it in male. Yeah.
Testosterone, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
You got it. So the endocrine structure, like I said, in these interstitial cells, they secrete testosterone. That's where I was pointing to. That's a blood vessel. Don't worry about it. These are the seminiferous tubules. We'll talk about that later. But that's it. That's all we're really going for in endocrine. Interstitial cells. Okay. I wrote a note to myself. I got to take your pictures. I think the roster has reasonably settled because they're going to print out the pictures, and I use their picture card to see for the exam. I think I mentioned that. The reasons for you. Let me stop.